The streets of Seoul pulsed with life, neon lights flickering against glass towers, voices rising in 100 different tongues. Mitchell Peterson darted between vendors in Myeongdong. Her bag heavy with groceries Naomi had begged her to pick up. "Please, Mitch," her sister had said. "We've got guests tonight. Minho's best friend. You'll like him." Mitchell had rolled her eyes at the thought. She didn't need introductions. She had her studies, her new life here, and that was enough. At least that's what she told herself. She stepped onto the crosswalk, balancing eggs in one hand and a bag of vegetables in the other, when a motorcycle swerved in front of her, its horn blaring. Instinct took over. She dropped everything and yanked the young rider out of the way. That's when she saw it. A black Maserati, sleek and low, screeching to a halt inches from her. The door opened. Out stepped a man, tall, immaculately dressed in a dark suit that looked like it had been cut for him alone. His face was striking, sharp cheekbones, strong jawline, hair swept back with effortless precision. But it was his eyes that caught her. Dark, unreadable, colder than the night air. "June." He glanced at the shaken rider on the pavement, then at Mitchell standing protectively in front of him. His voice was smooth, detached. "He shouldn't have been on the road." Mitchell's jaw dropped. You nearly flattened him. Are you insane?" Murmurs rippled through the crowd. No one raised their voice to men who stepped out of cars like this. But Mitchell wasn't anyone else. "You think that fancy car makes you king of the road?" She shot back, her Tobago lilt fierce and bright. "All it makes you is reckless." June didn't blink. His gaze swept her once, as though assessing her worth, then lingered just a second too long. Flicker, was it irritation? Amusement? Crossed his face before the mask returned. He said something curt in Korean into his phone, dismissed the rider with a wave of his hand, and slid back into the Maserati. The engine purred to life. A final glance, cold, unreadable, before he sped off, leaving Mitchell standing in the middle of the street with her groceries scattered and her blood boiling. "Arrogant bastard," she muttered, crouching to gather the cracked eggs. What Mitchell didn't know was that in just a few hours, she would be walking into her sister's apartment and seeing him again. Not as a stranger, not as the cold man behind the wheel, but as Minho's best friend, the guest of honor at tonight's dinner. The smell of garlic and soy simmering in sesame oil filled Naomi's apartment when Mitchell arrived, arms weighed down with the groceries she had salvaged. She was still muttering about cracked eggs when her sister opened the door. "You're late," Naomi said, smiling warmly. "Come in. Minho's best friend is already here." Mitchell groaned. "Naomi, I told you I don't need," but her voice died the second she stepped into the dining room. He was already standing. The man from the Maserati. June, dressed in another flawlessly cut suit, this time charcoal gray. His expression unreadable, but his eyes sharpened the moment they landed on her. Mitchell froze, heat rushing through her chest, equal parts fury and disbelief. "You've got to be kidding me." Minho, ever the cheerful host, looked between them. "You've met." Mitchell dropped the grocery bag on the counter a little too hard. "Oh, we've met. He almost ran me over today." Naomi gasped. "What?" Jiun's reply was calm, clipped. "She stepped into traffic." Mitchell whirled on him, fire sparking in her tone. "I saved someone's life and you nearly ended too. You're welcome, by the way." Minho blinked, torn between amusement and confusion. Naomi covered her mouth, unsure whether to laugh or panic. Jiun's gaze never wavered. "If I'd known you were Naomi's sister," he said smoothly, "I would have slowed down." Mitchell's eyes narrowed. "So strangers don't count, but family does? That's rich." Naomi hissed, "Mitch!" But it was too late. The room had already thickened with tension. Jiun's lips curved, not into a real smile, but into something sharper. The smallest acknowledgement. "You're fearless," he murmured, as though testing the words. Mitchell leaned back, folding her arms. "And you're infuriating." For a long moment, neither moved. It was like watching fire dare ice to melt. Finally, Minho clapped his hands, trying to cut through the static. All right, let's eat before Naomi's hard work gets cold. Sit, sit. They sat. Naomi next to Minho, Mitchell across from Ji-yoon. Every exchange carried a current. When Mitchell cracked a joke, Ji-yoon's gaze flickered like he wanted to dismiss it, but his eyes lingered too long. When Ji-yoon spoke, Mitchell rolled hers, but her pulse betrayed her irritation with something else. Halfway through, Naomi leaned to Minho and whispered, "They're going to kill each other." Minho smirked softly. "Or they won't." By the time dessert arrived, Mitchell was swirling her spoon in her glass of citron tea, refusing to let the silence win. "So, Ji-yoon," she said sweetly, her accent curling around the syllables. "Do you scowl for a living, or is that just a personal hobby?" Minho nearly dropped his chopsticks. Naomi's eyes went wide, but Ji-yoon did the most unexpected thing. He laughed. Not loud, not long, just a low, sharp sound that sent a shiver down Mitchell's spine, though she would never admit it. Naomi and Minho exchanged looks, both equally stunned. Ji-yoon hadn't laughed in years, and as Mitchell took another sip of tea, fighting the warmth creeping up her neck, she realized something she hadn't before. The cold billionaire wasn't quite as untouchable as he looked, and that made him dangerous. The plates had been cleared, dessert finished, and Naomi bustled into the kitchen humming to herself. Minho joined her, carrying empty dishes, leaving Mitchell and Ji-yoon at the table. The silence was unbearable. Mitchell drummed her fingers on the table, refusing to be the one who broke it. Ji-yoon sat perfectly still, posture straight, hands folded as though he were carved from stone. Finally, Mitchell couldn't take it. "You always this fun at parties? Or do you just save your best scowls for me?" Ji-yoon's eyes flicked to her, calm and unreadable. "You provoke them." Mitchell smirked. "So I'm the problem? Not your permanent frown lines." That made the corner of his mouth twitch. Almost a smile. Almost. "You speak without fear." She shrugged. "Somebody has to. Everyone else seems scared stiff around you. I prefer respect." "Respect?" Mitchell repeated, rolling the word on her tongue. "That's just fear with better manners." For a moment, something flickered in his eyes. Sharper, more alive than the cold mask he wore. But before she could press further, Naomi returned, sliding into her seat. "Coffee, Mitch?" Mitchell shook her head. "I've had enough adrenaline for one night." Ji-yoon's gaze lingered on her as Naomi poured herself a cup, as if silently agreeing. He didn't look away until Minho rejoined them. Later, when Ji-yoon finally stood to leave, Minho walked him to the door. Naomi hugged her sister and whispered, "Be nice to him, Mitch." Ji-yoon's complicated. Mitchell raised a brow. "That's one word for it." Ji-yoon stepped back into the living room to collect his coat. His eyes brushed hers, cool as ever, but there was a spark now, subtle and deliberate. "Good night, Miss Peterson." Mitchell folded her arms. "Try not to run anyone over on the way home." Mitchell exhaled, dropping onto the couch. Naomi was watching her closely. "You don't like him?" Naomi asked carefully. Mitchell scoffed. "I think he's the most arrogant man I've ever met." Naomi smiled knowingly. "And yet you can't stop talking about him." Mitchell threw a pillow at her sister, but her own heart betrayed her, beating just a little faster at the thought of him. The next morning, Mitchell was halfway out the door with her backpack slung over one shoulder when Naomi called from the kitchen, "Mitch, wait!" Mitchell turned, one sneaker already half-tied. "What?" Naomi came rushing over, phone in hand. "Your class is across town, right? Minho just called me. Ji-yoon's heading that way for a meeting. He can drive you." Mitchell blinked, then laughed, loud. "Oh, absolutely not." Naomi frowned. "Why not?" Mitchell spread her hands. "Because last night he was scowling at me like I was a personal insult, and the night before he nearly ran me over. Why would I willingly sit in a car with him?" Naomi gave her a look. "Because the subway is packed, your sneakers have holes, and you've got a presentation today. Stop being stubborn." Mitchell groaned, but 10 minutes later, she was standing at the curb outside, watching as a sleek black Maserati glided to a stop in front of her. The tinted window rolled down. Ji-yoon was at the wheel, immaculate as ever, expression unreadable. "Get in." Mitchell crossed her arms. "You always this charming?" His lips barely curved. "Only when forced." She muttered something under her breath but opened the door anyway, sliding into buttery leather that smelled faintly of cedar. The engine purred to life, and the city blurred past as they merged into traffic. For a while, neither spoke. Mitchell fiddled with her phone, refusing to glance at him. But the silence pressed down, thick and heavy, until she snapped. "So, do you drive like a maniac all the time? Or was yesterday special?" Ji-yoon's jaw tightened. "I don't drive recklessly. I calculate." Mitchell scoffed. "That's not calculating, that's gambling. Big difference." He glanced at her briefly, his eyes glinting. "And yet you gamble with words, Miss Peterson. Constantly." Her lips parted, caught off guard by how close he'd gotten to the truth. She covered it quickly with a grin. "Maybe because I win." This time his gaze lingered, long enough that Mitchell shifted in her seat, heat crawling up her neck. They pulled to a stoplight. He turned to face her fully, one hand still loose on the wheel. "You're not afraid of me." It wasn't a question. Mitchell tilted her head, meeting his eyes without flinching. "Should I be?" For the first time, Ji-yoon's mask slipped, just slightly. A flash of surprise, then something darker. He looked away, the light turning green, his voice low. "Most people are." The car fell silent again, but this time the air between them hummed. When they reached her campus, Mitchell grabbed her bag and pushed the door open, pausing before stepping out. "Thanks for the ride, Mr. Iceberg. Try not to melt on your way to your meeting." And then she was gone, striding across the courtyard without a backward glance. But Ji-yoon stayed there longer than necessary, watching her disappear into the crowd, his hand tightening on the steering wheel. Something about her unsettled him, and for the first time in years, he didn't hate the feeling. The chandeliered ballroom glittered with Seoul's elite, diamonds flashing, champagne glasses clinking, camera flashes sparking like lightning. This was the annual Moonlight Foundation Gala, where fortunes were paraded and reputations polished. Mitchell tugged at the hem of her emerald gown, borrowed from Naomi's closet. It hugged her waist and flowed to the floor, elegant but slightly daring with its low back. She felt out of place among the icy swans in couture gowns, until she caught a group of men staring openly. Naomi, radiant in her satin dress, whispered, "See? You belong here." "Belong?" "More like a fish dropped in a diamond tank," Mitchell muttered. And then she saw him. Ji-yoon, tall, sharp in a midnight black tuxedo, bow tie crisp. His presence cut through the room like a blade. He stood near Min-ho, surrounded by powerful businessmen, yet his eyes found her instantly. Mitchell's breath caught. Naomi noticed. "Don't. He's dangerous." "Dangerous?" Mitchell scoffed. "He's just a rich iceberg with a jawline." But her heart betrayed her, thudding hard as Ji-yoon excused himself and began to cross the room, his gaze locked solely on her. When he stopped in front of her, every other sound in the ballroom seemed to dull. "You clean up well," he said, voice low, smooth as velvet. Mitchell arched a brow. "And here I thought you only had scowls in your vocabulary." For a fleeting second, a ghost of a smile tugged at his lips. Then he extended his hand. "Dance with me." Mitchell hesitated. The music swelled, couples swirling across the marble floor. Naomi nudged her hard. Mitchell sighed and placed her hand in his. The moment his palm touched hers, heat shot up her arm. Ji-yoon led her effortlessly into the waltz, his movements precise, controlled, but there was tension in his grip, like he was holding back more than just steps. "You're full of surprises," Mitchell murmured. "Likewise," he returned, eyes dark, studying her face as though trying to solve a puzzle. She laughed softly. "Careful, Ji-yoon. You might actually start enjoying my company." He leaned closer, his breath brushing her ear. "Or you might start enjoying mine." The words stole the air from her lungs. She stumbled slightly, but his hand pressed firm against her back, steadying her. For a moment, she forgot the glittering crowd, the music, everything but the fire crackling between them. When the song ended, applause rippled, but neither of them moved. It was Naomi who broke the spell, appearing at their side with Minho. "Jiyoon, can I steal Mitchell for a moment?" Naomi asked lightly, but her eyes were sharp, protective. Jiyoon let go slowly, reluctantly. Mitchell felt the loss immediately. As Naomi whisked her away toward the buffet, Mitchell risked a glance back. Jiyoon was still watching her, his face unreadable, but his eyes, those eyes burned like embers under ice. Mitchell swallowed hard, muttering under her breath, "Great, just what I needed, to be haunted by a tuxedo." Mitchell needed air. The ballroom was suffocating. All the perfume, the sharp stares, the heavy tension that clung to her skin after that dance with Jiyoon. She slipped through a side door and found herself on a wide balcony, the city lights spilling out like scattered jewels below. She leaned against the railing, exhaling. "Pull yourself together, Mitch. It's just a dance. With a man who looks like sin in a tuxedo. No big deal." Talking to yourself? The voice, low and smooth, made her freeze. She turned. Jiyoon was there, of course, the glow of the city catching in his sharp features. He held 2 champagne flutes, offering one wordlessly. Mitchell eyed it. "Are you trying to bribe me into silence? Or is this your idea of being friendly?" "Neither." He placed one flute on the railing, kept the other. "I don't bribe, and I don't do friendly." She smirked. "Oh, I've noticed." He didn't laugh, but the corner of his mouth twitched. "Then why are you here, away from the crowd?" Mitchell lifted a shoulder. "Too many diamonds, not enough oxygen." "What's your excuse?" He stepped closer, his gaze steady on her. "The same." For a moment silence stretched between them. Not the suffocating kind, but something electric, like the world had narrowed to just the two of them. Mitchell broke it first. "So tell me, Jiyoon, why hide behind all that ice? You scared someone might actually like you if you smile too much." His jaw tightened. He turned his eyes to the city lights, but his voice was softer now. "Smiles can be dangerous. People expect warmth. Promises. I don't give those." Mitchell studied him, her playful retort dying on her lips. There was something raw in his tone, a sliver of vulnerability he hadn't meant to show. "Maybe," she said quietly, "you've just been giving them to the wrong people." That made him look at her. Really look. The air shifted, heavy with something unspoken. His hand brushed the railing, close enough to hers that their fingers almost touched. Almost. Mitchell's heartbeat stumbled. She forced a grin to cover it. "Careful, Jiyoon. If you keep being human for too long, someone might mistake you for approachable." This time, his lips curved fully, a real smile, rare and disarming. It lit his face in a way that made Mitchell's stomach flip. She blinked, flustered, and grabbed the champagne flute he'd left. "Okay, wow, that's illegal. You should warn people before you do that." He chuckled softly, the sound deep, startling, and unfairly addictive. Before Mitchell could say anything else, the balcony doors swung open. Naomi stepped out, relief flashing across her face. "There you are. I was looking everywhere." She glanced between them suspiciously. "You're not bothering my sister, are you, Jiyoon?" Jiyoon's smile vanished as quickly as it appeared, replaced by his usual composure. "Not at all." Mitchell sipped her champagne, eyes still locked on him over the rim. For once, she didn't have a comeback. Naomi looped her arm through her sister's and tugged her back inside, leaving Jiyoon standing alone on the balcony, his gaze lingering where Mitchell had been. The cold mask returned to his face, but deep inside, something had cracked, and he couldn't shake the thought, this woman is dangerous. Mitchell hadn't planned on running into him again. Not so soon, anyway. It was Saturday, and Naomi had practically shoved her out the door. "Go explore, Mitch. You've been in Seoul a month, and all you've seen is the inside of your classroom and my kitchen. Live a little." So Mitchell did. She wandered through Insadong's art streets, sipping on bubble tea, admiring antique shops, snapping photos of calligraphy signs for Naomi. It was the first time in weeks she felt completely herself, carefree, bold, untethered, until a sleek, familiar car pulled up at the curb. The door opened. Out stepped Ji-yoon. Of course. He looked maddeningly flawless even in casual clothes. A fitted navy jacket, crisp white shirt, dark trousers. His hair was swept back neatly, but his presence was the same. Commanding, sharp, impossible to ignore. Mitchell froze with her straw still in her mouth. "Oh, you've got to be kidding me." Ji-yoon's eyes flicked over her bubble tea, her jeans, her sneakers. A faint smirk ghosted across his lips. "You blend in well." Mitchell rolled her eyes. "And you don't. What are you doing here, Mr. Iceberg? Lose your boardroom and end up in the wrong neighborhood." Before he could answer, a small boy ran up and tugged on Ji-yoon's sleeve. "Uncle Ji-yoon, you're late." Mitchell blinked. "Uncle?" Ji-yoon's cold demeanor softened, barely but noticeably, as he placed a hand on the boy's shoulder. "I was delayed." The boy grinned up at him, gap-toothed and bright-eyed. Then his gaze shifted to Mitchell. "Who's she?" Ji-yoon hesitated. Mitchell jumped in, grinning. "I'm the girl your uncle almost ran over the other day." The boy's eyes widened. Then he burst into laughter. "Really? Uncle Ji-yoon's a terrible driver." Mitchell laughed too, the sound bubbling out before she could stop it. Ji-yoon's jaw flexed, but he didn't correct either of them. The boy tugged Ji-yoon's hand. "Come on. The art show's starting." Mitchell's brows shot up. "Wait, you? At an art show?" Ji-yoon gave her a level look. "I support my nephew's school." "Oh," Mitchell teased. "So the Ice King does have a heart." For the first time, Ji-yoon didn't bite back. Instead, he looked at her, really looked, and said quietly, "You'd be surprised what I have." The words lodged in Mitchell's chest. Her laughter faltered, replaced by something else. Something warm. The boy tugged again. "She can come too, right, Uncle?" Mitchell blinked. "What? No, I was just passing." "Yes." Ji-yoon cut in, eyes still on her. "She can." And that was how Mitchell Peterson found herself standing next to Ji-yoon in a crowded elementary school gym, watching a group of kids perform a messy, endearing art showcase. As the children ran around with paint-stained hands, Ji-yoon leaned down slightly, his voice low. "You're enjoying this?" Mitchell smirked. "Of course. Unlike you, I don't have a stick permanently lodged in my—" He cut her off with a sharp glance. "Careful." But there was no real venom in it. In fact, Mitchell swore she saw the corners of his mouth twitch again. And when his nephew ran up proudly waving a paint-splattered canvas, Ji-yoon took it with surprising gentleness, crouching to the boy's level. His eyes softened, his tone warm in a way Mitchell had never heard before. Something in her chest tugged. This wasn't the Ice King. This was Ji-yoon the man. And she wasn't ready for how much she liked that version of him. Mitchell hadn't stopped thinking about that art show. Not about the kids running wild. Not even about Ji-yoon's ridiculously handsome scowl when she teased him in front of parents. No, it was the way he had crouched to his nephew's level, holding that messy little canvas as if it were priceless. It unsettled her, because she wasn't supposed to like him. Not the man who looked at the world like it was a chessboard. Not the man who could silence a room with a single glare. And yet, here she was, lying awake at Naomi's, replaying his rare, gentle voice. Ji-yoon wasn't sleeping either. He stood by his window in his penthouse apartment. The city stretched beneath him. His tie was undone, his jacket discarded, but his thoughts were anything but relaxed. Mitchell Peterson. She was chaos wrapped in sunlight. She laughed too loudly, spoke too boldly, and challenged him at every turn. She didn't fear him, worse, she mocked him. And somehow, she lingered in his mind like a melody he couldn't shake. It was unacceptable, dangerous, and completely irresistible. The confrontation came sooner than either expected. Naomi and Minho had dragged Mitchell to a high-rise charity dinner. "Networking," Naomi had said. Mitchell suspected it was code for matchmaking. She was cornered by an older businessman who couldn't seem to take no for an answer. His smile was slick, his hand inching too close to hers on the table. Mitchell leaned back, ready to snap at him, when a shadow fell over them. June. His hand came down on the table, firm, commanding. She said no. The man paled instantly, mumbling an apology before scurrying off. Mitchell blinked, stunned. Wow. Iceberg to the rescue. Didn't think you had it in you. June straightened, eyes sharp. You should be more careful. Men like him are everywhere. Mitchell cut in, rising to face him. Don't act like I need saving. His gaze hardened. You could have been in trouble. And what? You think you're my bodyguard now? She shot back, heat rising in her voice.
Find out what happens in their relationship in the next episode, which is coming up soon, by clicking on the notification icon. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed the story, please do not forget to like and subscribe to our channel. Also tell us the country you are watching us from in the comments section so that we will make a story for you.